Okay, take two. Trying to bring Kyokan in now. Bear with me. Namo Amida Butsu. And hopefully he shall be arriving soon. Having some technical difficulties this morning. They're always fun.
Okay,
I love
there we
technology.
go. Don't we though?
It's so great when it works. Namo Amida Butsu.
I'm gonna
Since
need a
we're
boot.
since we're starting over with this,
Yes.
there we go. So yeah.
All right. Well, so what shall we discuss today? I did send you some sort of trying to explain the not grace, I guess you would call it, but
Yeah, the
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 words
the,
skip.
the gratitude expressions before meals
Yeah.
and so forth. Yeah, we could do that. We could talk about that. Um, that we could try to because I think last session, I think it was more just. I think it was just one of our freewheeling. I don't think I'll post that one. Do you know what I mean? We just because there were so many different things we talked about, and I think it was a good just to air some things and you know what I mean, as far as and
Definitely.
get some preliminary kind of thoughts about what you know we want to talk about. It was helpful, but I don't think it's something I'll actually put as a video. But yeah, so we could go over um, those things and talk about Buddhist vegetarianism or Buddhism and vegetarianism and Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, how it approaches these topics and all of that. Or I even found the page on the the Dhamma wiki about Buddhism and vegetarianism. Um,
I think I know which
that we
one.
could, yeah, that we could
Hmm.
maybe reference and talk about. But yeah, um, and also I wanted to. There was that the website that kind of it's a Buddhist Churches of America website that has like a very brief little thing about in their Q&A about when it
Right.
comes to meat eating or vegetarianism that just says there are no requirements. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, or we could read that passage from about hunters and fishermen,
Hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, because basically, I mean, I know that the basic thing is that Jodo Shinshu teaching, Buddhist teaching, and Amida Buddha himself makes no kind of there isn't any requirement to be a vegetarian and
Mm-hmm.
to be Jodo
Right.
Shinshu Buddhist or to be able to go to Pure Land. There isn't any,
And let's be
you know,
cautious here
as for
because it's not something that's unique to Jodo Shinshu.
yeah, yeah.
The majority of Buddhist traditions do not require vegetarianism per
Mm,
se, necessarily, right?
okay. So, do you
So,
want to start by maybe do a big tent approach? And sorry, we have a delay there. Do you want to start with a kind of a big tent approach and maybe read from that article, a bit from that article from the Dhamma wiki,
sure.
um, and and then kind of go from there. Although I haven't, just want to just double check.
Mm.
Yeah, Yeah, I think that might be a good way to start things off. The big tent approach. Let's uh let's do that. I'm gonna share and I'm gonna get it set up so it'll allow multiple sharing when you're ready to share something.
Sure.
Okay. There we go. So this is again from the Dhamma wiki.
Hmm.
So
This
vegetarian.
is not what I thought it was.
Oh, what did you think it was then? The
Um, I had in mind I think there's another article
wiki.
on um vegetarianism and Buddhism from a different Dharma. It's called, I forget what, but never mind. I'm sure this is good too.
Well, let's see. There's a few things here that there's a tricycle magazine discussion of it. There's one that says why you know, Buddhist vegetarians? Why aren't
Right.
all Buddhists vegetarian? From Tricycle magazine.
Here it was, BuddhaNet.
BuddhaNet. Okay.
Yeah. It's this is from a Theravada perspective, but it is, uh, you know, I mean, there's
A good.
nothing.
Okay. Is it a good? Let me see if I can bring Basic Guide to Buddhism. Is that the one? This one?
Yes, I think so. Is it? Yeah, yeah, this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the one. So you want to go with this? Yeah, because I recently did a post actually on Facebook from this website um, about
Yeah.
aging and such impermanence. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good one. It's because it's actually they actually present it like classes almost like courses, which is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
good way to study the Dharma. So shall we? Yeah, should we go through this page then? If that's the one you're happy to do.
Yeah, I think it's a good one because it's not too long. It's in a kind of
Yeah,
easy to understand
yeah,
format.
sure. All right. So, vegetarianism. Good question, good answer with the Venerable S. Dhammika. So, question. Buddhist Buddhists should be vegetarians, shouldn't they? Answer: not necessarily. The Buddha was not a vegetarian. He did not teach his disciples to be vegetarians, and even today, there are many good Buddhists who are not vegetarians. Question: but if you eat meat, you are indirectly responsible for the death of a creature. Isn't that breaking the first precept? Yeah, see, this is going right to the things that I think it's important to cover. Answer: it is true that when you eat meat, you are indirectly and partially responsible for killing a creature, but the same is true when you eat vegetables. The farmer yep, exactly. The farmer has to spray his crop with insecticides and poisons so that the vegetables arrive on your dinner plates without holes in them. Once again, animals have been killed to provide the leather for your belt or handbag, oil for the soap you use, and 1,000 other products as well. It is impossible to live without, in some way, being indirectly responsible for the death of some other beings. And this is just another example of the first noble truth. Ordinary existence is suffering and unsatisfactory. When you take the first precept, you should avoid being directly responsible for killing beings. Yeah. And we kind of talked about that in that our last session. Um,
Right.
maybe I will post it. Maybe I will actually. The um, we talked about how because I think something along this lines of how unideal conditions are in the Saha world and particularly in Mappo, you kind of everything we do has a cost to everything else. That's just in general. That's samsara. Anything
Yep.
we do, any thought, word, deed action, behavior, existence is a cost to something else just by virtue of being in
Yep.
samsaric existence, but especially so, I would say, in Mappo, because it's so unideal. The conditions are so unideal that but so I
Mm.
think that's a good, yeah, like, and we did talk about this, how even with if you're consuming vegetables, the way, even if you're not using insecticides, if you're toiling, if somebody's toiling the earth, if somebody's, do you know what I mean, in agriculture, they're going to be killing creatures in the
Yep.
earth. It's just a fact.
On a massive scale too, by
Yeah,
the way.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, when you take a shower, you're killing creatures. Do you know what I mean? You're killing when you use insecticide on your hands. Not insecticide, sorry, bacterial. When you use not insecticide. What was the word? I'm like antibacterial ointments on your hand. Or hand sanitizer, or wash your hand. Or wash your body. You're killing
Mm.
life forms. Do you know what I mean? Just by virtue of so everything you do
Yeah.
anyway. But you shouldn't. I like how even the distinction here, not that we try to follow not that in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, Shinran, you know explained, or made it clear to us that there are no precepts by the time, in these times in Mappo. But I think we should still be trying to you know live
Mm.
humanely and try to live by the precepts, even though we can't truly live like them, like, in kind of any effective way that would actually make us, it would gain us merit, or change our ultimate karmic situation toward becoming more enlightened or anything like that. But I think the principles are still sound to
Oh yeah. Well, they
avoid killing.
reflect the,
Don't kill, like, is a good you avoid
yeah.
killing. Don't kill. Don't be violent. Don't harm others. Reduce your harm to others. I think, which is kind of what a lot of the precepts are about. But you know,
Mhm.
harm to others and yourself. You know, I think so. In that sense, the precepts are still a good guideline. Even though we can't take precepts and you know practice them, we can still use them as a guideline for how we live. And it still would have good, I'd say, still trying to do that would have good, just at least within this life, would have good karmic causes, consequences, just in the sense of, if you live a peaceful life, if you live a life of reducing harm to yourself and others, it's going to be better. You're gonna have a better life that way, and so are others around you. So anyway, sorry, coming back to the topic though. Yeah. Anything you want to kind of say about that first couple of questions and answers there? Bring it back down so we can see it.
Yeah, well,
And
the
I'll,
statement, this is, of course, a Theravada
yeah,
source, which is perfectly fine. The statement
yeah,
that the Buddha was not a vegetarian is obviously controversial and
yeah,
a somewhat controversial
yeah.
statement. Um, but, historically, it's yes, the Buddha was probably not did
A
not abstain
fully,
because it was a
yeah.
Shramanera movement. It was, you have to remember, the earliest Buddhism was um a mendicant, meaning not having no house, no abode. They would go from village to village, um sharing, teaching the Dharma, and whatever the villagers brought to them. Now there were the Buddha did put some rules on. Like, for example, the monks could not partake of meat if they knew it had been killed specifically for them. In other
Hmm.
words, for the
Hmm.
purpose of
Hmm.
that creature. But he didn't make a rule against eating meat uh, as a total ban on it. um, so, and then there's in the light of that, I mean, the sort of debate as to whether the Buddha's last meal was mushrooms or a sort of soft pork, to me is kind of moot
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Anyway.
but for some people, especially in certain Mahayana circles, it's obviously a somewhat controversial statement. But from the
Yeah.
historical point of view, we have to kind of be honest about that. And then the
Mm,
other thing
mm.
is that
Well, and also, I think generally could be said that he was mostly vegetarian, if anything. Do you know what I mean? Couldn't that kind of be safely said that he and the monks would have, he and
yeah, I mean, well, they had to eat whatever they were given.
were given? Yeah, exactly.
And you have
But
to remember in ancient times, in especially, um, people did not have the luxury of being vegetarian.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
there were, there were, of course, the Jains were a totally vegetarian, what we would call probably vegan
yeah,
today,
yeah.
um,
Oh, they did all
sect.
extreme things. I mean, they would to avoid accidentally breathing in insects coming, while they're breathing, they would cover their
Right. Yeah.
face with
Yeah.
like a mesh kind of cloth
Yeah.
and things like that, like things.
Hmm.
Anyway, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Avoid
And
walking in
now,
certain places and that
yep.
sort of thing. Yeah.
But Buddhists also, for example, my younger brother attended um, a Theravada monastery session in Southern California when he was a student at Long Beach, and he told me that they do sweep the pathway, you know,
Mm.
to
To avoid. Yeah.
to avoid stepping on insects and ants and so on.
And
Um,
weren't there kind of didn't the Buddha was the Buddha himself or later Buddhist leaders kind of I'm pretty sure it was the Buddha himself though gave guidelines as far as when kind of monks should be traveling and where to avoid that kind of trampling on creatures and something along that line.
well,
Or was that a
I
later development?
yeah. Well, there's the Vinaya has whole lists of
Yeah,
rules in the Pratimoksha and so on that are very have some very specific rules regarding a lot all kinds of behavior. But
yeah.
it's interesting that the Buddha made those rules in response to situations, basically, as they arose. He didn't start out with a huge list of commandments and rules to follow
It
and tell
yeah, it's
people
developed
you have to follow all
as
these rules.
yeah,
It was a thing that was added to as
yeah,
rules became
de-
necessary.
exactly,
So the Buddha would
exactly.
see something, if something happened, and some of these stories are really crazy. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
you've got, they're really out there in some cases. But if something happened, um, the monks, would convene, ask the Buddha, well, this happened, what should we do? Is this okay? And then the Buddha would lay down, a rule regarding that particular behavior or particular, um, so that's that body of rules, of course, is
yeah.
the Vinaya. Now, it's interesting, Devadatta, at least according to tradition, um, he thought the Buddha was too lax and he wanted to introduce um, more strict rules, basically, that people could only live under trees. Um, People couldn't eat meat at all. That was, in fact, one of the rules that he wanted
He
was to
wanted
be completely
interesting.
vegetarian, like
Yeah,
Jains.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and the Buddha, of course, rejected that, but he did say if people want to observe these rules as sort of an additional thing, they are free to do that, but they're not compulsory, basically, is
Mm.
is what
Hmm. Hmm.
was decided. Of course, Devadatta had his own designs for taking over the path.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
exactly. I think that's a bit. We could do a whole thing on David. That could be a whole session on David Atta and the kind of warnings that things to avoid doing.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean? When it comes to you know Buddhism and
yeah,
practice and teaching and
yeah.
uh, leading a sangha and do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot of where they'll well anyway that it sounds like he was making things very extreme, shall we say, or
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
um lots of control. He sounds very control oriented, shall we
Yes,
say.
indeed.
Uh,
And,
we can
as
see
we know,
parallels in our current world
well,
with
yeah.
within
uh,
within Buddhism and
yeah,
without. But anyway,
for sure, for sure. And then the
that
other
but
thing I did want to sort of
but I
bring
think that
up
was an
that,
important thing to make is we're talking about the middle way. Buddhism
right.
is about
Yeah.
the middle way, not the extreme way, not
Yeah.
the um. Anyway, sorry.
No, no, no. That's very important point. And what I was gonna say, it's interesting that according to the Buddha, uh, the story of the Buddha, the Sanskrit, classical Sanskrit life of the Buddha. Um, the Buddha actually, when he was a young boy, he was sitting outside by a field, and he was watching the field workers tilling the earth,
Hmm. Hmm.
and he suddenly realized that they were killing all these living creatures,
Right.
insects basically,
Yeah.
that were living in the ground, and he was deeply affected by that and very, sorrowful at that. And that was actually, according to the story, that was actually the young Buddha. This was when he was just a child. Um, his first kind of real encounter with what, the first noble truth, that ordinary existence is suffering and unsatisfactory, as it says here, that all beings suffer, and that in order for him to live, something, all these creatures in the ground had to
Yep.
die,
Yep.
you know. And he was so impacted by that that he actually went and sat under a tree and meditated, according to the story, when he was just, this was, by the way, before he was even a young man. He was still like, 12 or whatever. Um, and he actually reached a certain, the jhana, one of the jhanas of meditation, and he actually had some insight at that point into the the truth of things that he would later fully, awaken to. But so that you can see where that kind of relates to this,
Yes, definitely.
because even with vegetables, um, any scale of agriculture is going to involve the taking of life. It's like Reverend Ray said, for something to live, something has to die. It's just, and that's why it's called birth and death, samsara, shoji in Japanese, the character sho for birth and for death. Um, so that was, sort of stuck out to me. And then the other thing is I do have, um, some people become vegetarian, and um, they think that because they only eat vegetables, they are morally correct and
Hmm.
pure,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they
Exactly.
lose sight of the first noble truth. They lose sight of the interdependence, and they lose sight of the ways in which their very, very moral and correct way of living is in fact affecting others, and
Exactly.
it is in
Yeah.
fact sustained. The person who brings your vegetables
Yeah.
isn't necessarily eating vegetables.
Yep.
and on it goes. Those field workers tilling those fields
Exactly.
are not necessarily all vegetarians. They can't be. They need, energy for that kind of work. They can't just be eating salad on their breaks. You know,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
that's the issue I have, or
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
question that I have is
Yeah.
it's fine to be, you can, like the Buddhist Churches of America website said, you can choose to be a vegetarian or not, and that's a personal choice that you need to make. And many people have, I think, very good reasons for choosing to be
Yeah.
vegetarian.
Yeah.
But if by doing so you suddenly start to lose sight of, you start to think of yourself as sort of, you know, um,
Yeah, superior,
above
more
the rest.
morally superior and self-righteous, and
Right.
that you have a superior way of living, and and
Yeah.
that you are, yeah, and I think, I think it's good. Anything that people do to reduce harm to others and themselves is a good
Yeah.
thing, you know.
Hmm.
I would say I'm kind of majoritatively speaking vegetarian. I'd say, at
Hmm.
times mostly vegetarian. Um, Anywhere from 2/3 of my diet would be vegetarian, or three
Yeah.
fourths type of thing. Um, and well, we'll get to this. I want to talk about my struggles with this, internally, and the calculations that ensue with it all. But so that's what, I try to be as vegetarian as I can be. That's kind of how I handle it, both from, you know uh kind of ethically, and talk, and at the same time my wife is not vegetarian,
Hmm.
and doesn't really, can't really be, because she can't handle the types of foods that you have to eat to be,
Right.
vegetarian. So she just, for health reasons, can't really do it, and just, it's not part of her life. And it's so, you know,
Yeah.
that I have to kind of take the middle way, you know,
Right.
with my own life, and things there, but in a sense, so to speak. But I just think, anything we can do, like as I say, to reduce harm to ourselves and others is a good thing to do, you know, um, as best we can, and that's in any aspect of life, not
Yeah.
just the way you
Well,
eat.
yeah,
Yeah,
certainly, certainly.
yeah. But
But
anyway,
with that comes the realization, like Shinron said,
yeah,
that I can have the good intention of not uh, killing anyone, but if there are, you know, the karmic causes, so to speak, I might end up without intending, you know, to be someone who is taking life and so on. But anyway, I do want to say that I think you end up with, in the case of, for example, your wife is a good example. I think some more extreme, like maybe vegans, uh, say that, well, everyone needs to be vegetarian. It's kind of a little bit like a religious cult if you get
oh, it's very
into
religious. It's
some
very
to some
cult-like. It's definitely an ideology in and of itself, at a minute, at a minimum, an ideology in and of itself. Let alone, yeah, we could, religious or cult-like, uh, or even
and so there are,
eugenics connotations to it. For some of them, as we discussed in the last session, some of them feel like we should breed meat eaters out of existence. I've actually heard some of them say this on YouTube, like on the internet.
yeah, yeah,
They think we should, anyone who eats meat, anyone with the proclivity to eat meat should be breeded out of existence. We should breed meat eaters out of existence. That's literally, I've heard them say stuff like that. Stay,
yeah,
out talking out their asses,
right.
literally. So yeah. Anyway,
And that's clearly not in keeping with Buddhist
No,
teaching.
definitely not.
So,
Definitely
there
not.
is an overlap between vegetarianism and
Yeah,
Buddhism, but
yeah.
it's like a Venn diagram, you know. They're not the
No,
same thing.
exactly.
Um, well, I was just going to say that. So there are people who say, well, I chose this lifestyle. I am doing this, you know, choosing to live this way. So everybody has to. And this isn't just the right lifestyle for me because I have chosen it. It's something that everybody needs to do, right? And the reality is that not everybody can do that. And that's just the medical, sorry, but it's the medical scientific reality. The fact is, not everybody can be a vegetarian.
Exactly.
Um, so, you know, so that's the only
And it's
issue I would.
literally not part of our makeup. It's literally not part of our evolutionary, however you want to frame that, evolutionary kind of constitution as human beings, you know what I mean? Or karmically speaking, even
Right.
like the way we are constituted by our, karma is literally physically, we're not built to we're built to eat maybe not the amount of meat, as I said in the last session, that kind of societies do consume.
Yeah,
Far
that's
less
another
than that we're
question.
built, but we have to have it. Our bodies are actually constituted to at least have some.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there are
Well,
health consequences. So,
the
and that's one of
animal,
the unideal aspects of samsaric existence. The Saha world is we're literally built not to have health consequences for trying to do something that would reduce or reduce harm to ourselves, and reduce harm to others, what I mean, to other beings. Like we're
yeah,
literally physically built that way to that it makes us unhealthy. It could potentially make us unhealthy unless we approach it in a certain way, and some people can't do that for
yeah,
whatever reasons, whether it's health, social, cultural, availability, financial, economic. Some people literally can't be that,
yeah.
So there's almost an elite, there's a kind of an elite aspect,
Ism.
elite philosophy, elitism about vegetarianism and veganism, especially. But um, anyway,
Mm.
sorry,
Yeah, that's all I have to
which is
say
not
on that.
Buddhist, which is not Buddhist at all. That's not the middle way. That's not the
Yeah.
principles of Buddhism. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. I
Yep, that's all I wanted to say on those two and the
okay.
question.
Those two
And now we're
bits.
getting to the real fun,
The meat. We're getting into the.
the meat of the question, as it were.
All right. So I think we're on Mahayana Buddhist.
Yes.
Okay, so now that's a broad statement, isn't it? We'll have to unpack that. Mahayana Buddhists don't eat meat. This is not correct. There we go. Mahayana Buddhism in China laid great stress on being um, vegetarian, but both the monks and laywomen of the Mahayana tradition in Japan and Tibet usually eat meat. You
Yes.
want to stop on that one, or do you want to go to get the next?
Well, a couple notes
Yeah,
here is, of course, it's well known that, you know, the Mahayana Sutras, especially the uh, Lankavatara Sutra and also the Nirvana Sutra, both of which, of course, were very, very influential in East Asian Buddhism in China and so on. Both do sort of have the Buddha retroactively banning the consumption of meat. He says in those sutras some very clear or some very strong statements about meat eating against it, right? Um, so that's why in Mahayana Buddhism you have vegetarianism becoming a focus. But you also have to remember at this point, by the time the Mahayana teaching began to spread and arise within Buddhist Sangha, the Sangha had gone from being mendicant to sedentary. Basically, the monks had settled and were now engaging in agriculture. Um, they basically had the freedom to be vegetarians, um, in a way that the early mendicant Buddhist monks could not. Essentially, I was reading, there was um, a post or an article by an American, I think, who maybe Australian, somebody from either America or Australia, went to be a Theravada monk in Thailand, and basically, to join the monastery and to practice the Dharma there. And he said that if he could have taken any excuse whatsoever to not eat what ended up in his begging bowl, he would have done so. You're talking snails, frog legs,
Yeah. Yeah.
leftover insects, bugs,
Yeah.
grubs.
Yeah.
That's all food for people who are,
Yeah.
well below what we would consider to be the poverty line. These people are
Exactly.
literally subsisting,
Yep.
and yet out of their generosity, they are giving some of that precious food to the monks for
Exactly.
spiritual
Yeah.
benefit. So there's no way the monks can say no to that, because you're literally
Hmm.
smacking that person in the
Hmm.
face
Hmm.
and denying them that spiritual benefit, right? But in the context of a sedentary, situation where you have monks building monasteries and so
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
it
Exactly.
becomes possible to, have sustain a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also true, Tibetan Buddhism did not go very far. There were some vegetarian teachers who said, we should be eating, but it probably didn't get as far in Tibet because of the climate. People, were basically dependent on yaks and on everything that came from the yak. I mean, they used the hair, the hooves, the meat, the milk, everything, right? In the context of a high altitude uh, Himalayan climate, vegetarianism is not going to be as feasible as it is, for example, in a
Yep.
low, warm,
Yep.
a
Yeah.
little bit like
Exactly.
China.
So yeah,
And then Japan,
environment factors. Yeah, environmental. Yeah, definitely
right?
factors. Yeah.
And then Japan is interesting because, of course, you know, Saicho, the founder of Tendai, basically said, let's forget about the Vinaya and just have the Brahmajala precepts, the Mahayana precepts. Um, one of which, of course, is no eating of meat. Um, and that may have been followed by people in the higher social, you know, ranks. But you have to remember that Jodo Shinshu primarily spread amongst the common folk, and these were people who were living what we would consider to be a very, very difficult existence. You know, uh, just basically making enough to get by. Oftentimes, working for, of course, the lords that own the land and so on and so on and so forth. So, telling these people that they needed to be vegetarian would have been a nonsensical,
Yeah.
you know, and in many cases, these people were social outcasts in Japan at that time. People who hunted or were butchers, were tanners, any of these, occupations in which what we, would be called wrong livelihood, right? In
Exactly.
the Eightfold Path, that involved the taking of life were basically social outcasts. In some cases, they would even be called non-persons. You know, they weren't even people. That's how extreme the discrimination was against certain groups of people in Japan. And so you can imagine for these people the attraction of the message of Amida's vow, which RENNYO is saying in that letter, um, that Amida saves you and embraces you exactly as you are, you know, would have been an incredibly powerful message to hear if you were one of these people who was a complete,
Exactly.
on the outskirts of society, so to speak.
Exactly. And that's
Anyway,
the
just some things about
well,
the
that brings in the
Mahayana.
important aspect of Jodo Shinshu teaching. That brings in, of Amida, Amida Buddha accepting, you know, Bambu
Yeah,
as we are, accepting us,
right.
and in fact trying to help us be what we are. Trying to, to be the very thing that,
Hmm.
to become, to be born in the Pure Land, enables us to be born in the Pure Land by becoming the foolish
Our
beings
foodless
that we are.
selves,
Yeah, none other than our
so,
foolish selves. Yeah. So
you know,
that's like the ultimate acceptance. That's so, that's an important part of all this is vegetarian or no vegetarian, you can, you know, um,
right.
the
Well, we're
Dharma,
all equal
yeah,
in the right where there's no, and so that's important, and that's why we tend to emphasize that it is a personal choice. It's
hmm
not a, you know, and so in terms of the Jodo Shinshu Sangha and the working of the vow and the saying of the Nimbutsu, we're all spiritual equals. Shinran says ondobo ondogyo. There's not a special class of people who are doing things better than the rest of everybody else. We're
exactly.
we're spiritual equals, fellow travelers. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't um, behave ourselves, as my mom would probably have
Yeah,
said.
yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, that's kind of, implied in Amida, being our mother, uh,
you know,
do you know what I mean? You still,
yeah.
you need to behave. You still want to behave yourselves, the reason for the, you know, uh, except in the case of the five committing the five grave offenses. Well, you can still go to Pure Land, but come on, behave yourself. Yeah. Do you know?
Better not to do these things
Yeah,
is
better not to do
the
these things. You can still go to Pure Land if you do, but uh,
well,
yeah,
yeah.
it's if I enable you to, but still don't do them. You know.
Mhm.
Anyway, sorry. So yeah, but
I like the next question and answer, so
okay,
shall we
let's
continue?
go to the next.
Now, by the way, there's a lot to be said about Mahayana Buddhism and vegetarianism. I mean,
Yeah,
and only should probably look at some of the. I know there's a really great book about Buddhist ethics generally, is published by Cambridge University Press. Maybe we should even share that
okay.
book at the
Yeah.
end who are interested, because it is really, really good. And it
Do you
does
want me to look that up
address,
now? Do we want to go to that in a bit, or or is it more
yeah,
of a
it's
link you
called,
saying to provide in the description of the video? Is that kind of what
yeah,
you're
I
saying?
think we could do it. I'll go ahead and look it up while you
Okay,
are
well,
reading the next
next
question.
one. Okay.
And I can go
So
through.
I think I should, but I still think that a Buddhist should be a vegetarian. That's the question. The answer is if there was a person who was a very strict vegetarian, but who was selfish, dishonest, and mean, and another person who was not a vegetarian, but who was thoughtful to others, honest, generous, and kind, which of these two would be the better Buddhist? A
Hmm.
very good
That's
question.
a good, that is a good answer.
Very,
Good
very good
answer.
answer with a good question. Yeah, a further question.
Indeed.
Um,
Well, that's
and that highlights
self-explanatory.
the things
So,
we're saying. We're trying to say is, you know, um, being a vegetarian doesn't let you off the hook. Okay, great. You're a Buddhist and a vegetarian. That's great. How do you behave the rest of the time? That's great. You eat plant-based. You have a plant-based diet. You might even have a plant-based clothing and a plant-based this and that. But how do you behave in the rest of
mhm.
your life? How do you behave with your significant other, your family, your friends, your employer? How many breaks do you take longer than you should? How much,
Yep.
you know what I mean? How much of your employer's time do you waste? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how,
Mhm.
how do you behave in the rest of your life? You know, yeah.
Exactly. And also,
So,
have your bono been purified by being,
a
you know,
vegetarian? No.
vegetarian?
I think the question: Has your bono been purified by being a vegetarian? Answer: No.
That's
But
something
Amida,
to,
but yeah, no, but Amida Buddha turns it into good. But Amida Buddha turns your rubble into gold, turns your bono, your kleshas, your spiritual evil into good by the power of his
yeah,
vow. Yeah. All right, have you found
that's right.
that? Found what you?
Yeah, should we take a brief break and I can share this
Yeah,
just for those who
yeah.
are
I've
interested?
already. Yeah, I'll stop sharing,
Yeah,
and you share.
I can share my screen,
Okay.
please.
All right, I've stopped my sharing.
Okay. Think it's visible?
It is. Yep.
Okay. Yes, so this is Cambridge University Press, An Introduction to Buddhist Ethics, Foundations, Values, and Issues series by, I'll try to make it a little bigger there, Peter Harvey, a great Buddhist scholar, um, University of Sunderland. And as you can see, the book has a great image of Mahagosananda, who was a Theravada monk and peace activist in Cambodia.
It's a
And
lovely,
the
lovely
good thing about
photo.
this book,
It's
it is
beautiful.
indeed, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was a lovely human being. And you can see how it expresses itself
Yeah,
in
it
his face.
just,
The
yeah, it
loving
just
kindness, the
exactly
metta. The metta just kind of,
shining. Yeah,
you can feel it,
shining forth.
shining off this
Yeah,
guy.
exactly, exactly.
And I don't, yeah. So the good thing about this book is you have it just addresses in very substantial chapters all of these issues, the shared foundations of Buddhist ethics, key Buddhist values, Mahayana emphases and adaptations, which is, of interest, especially if you're from the Mahayana tradition, right? Attitude to and treatment of the natural world, economic ethics, war and peace, etc., etc., uh, suicide and euthanasia, abortion and contraception, sexual equality, homosexuality, and other forms of queerness. So, and this is really, really, really excellent book. I can recommend it without any reservation.
Okay, good.
Um, you're looking for a comprehensive, uh, very easy to grasp. It's not written. It's not a technical,
Hmm.
overly
Hmm.
technical. It's
Plain,
very
plain
easy
English,
to
plain
read.
language,
Yeah.
plain language. Yeah, not in
So
scholarly academic language, but plain
yeah,
language.
it's
Yeah.
not written in scholarese or whatever they call
Mm. Yeah.
it. So excellent book, highly recommend. Only 32.99 pounds, whatever that is in your currency. Um, Well, and it's pounds in your currency, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
but for
exactly.
the viewers,
For other parts of the world. Anyway.
yeah. All right. I just wanted to recommend that's the
Yeah,
book
excellent.
recommendation.
No,
Yeah.
no, thank you. Thank you for doing that. I'll share my screen again. Yeah, so I'll put the link to that in so if you can send me that on Messenger, I'll when I
Yeah,
eventually
yeah.
post this, I'll put that link on there. So yeah, so I just think that's such an excellent point though about,
Mm,
there's so much it's another way to hide. It seems like to me for
mm,
there's so much emphasis on that vegetarianism and in Buddhism, and it just seems like it's a good place. Oh, I'm doing that. I'm doing this. So, do you know what I mean? It's like avoiding the exposure of,
yeah.
you know,
Well, it can be a place where we have to be careful, I think,
yeah,
with because the ego is
yeah,
always looking
yep,
for something.
yeah,
And I would sort of maybe from a Jodo Shinshu point of view, you could maybe tweak this answer a little bit and say something like if there was a person who was a very strict vegetarian, but who was not aware of themselves as an evil person,
yes,
another person who was not a vegetarian, but who was aware of their bamboo nature and entrusted to Amida. Which of these would be the better Shin Buddhist? You could
yeah,
not better
yeah.
in this case would not apply,
Better.
but
It's
which
not a
of
great.
these
Yeah, 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 yeah,
who you could say who is the object of Amida's vow?
yeah,
You know.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Kind of like you're rephrasing the um surely surely the non-vegetarian person and even the vegetarian person could
Mhm.
go to Pure
Yeah,
Land.
yeah,
Yeah, do you know what I mean? That how what's the statement the Shinran that
yeah.
the evil
Well,
person surely the evil person will go to Pure Land and even the good person. Do you see what I mean?
even
You could kind
yeah.
of say surely the non-vegetarian person and even the vegetarian. Anyway, anyway. Right. Shall we go on?
All right.
I'll stop myself before I say anything more controversial. Uh,
Well,
I think it's almost impossible with these topics,
I think it's
really.
too late. I think it's too late at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah.
Oh,
That ship has sailed. That
the
ship
ship.
has sailed. Says ship is gone over the horizon. All right. So, okay. So the person who the so the so question. So they're answering the answer of the
Right.
Biko here.
Yeah.
They're answering his question that he gave as an answer to their previous one. So
Yeah.
they're saying who would be which of these two would be the better Buddhist. Their question is the person who was honest and kind, and then the next question is why, and then they say for the answer from the Biko is why, and the next question is because such a person obviously has a good heart, um, and the answer from the Biko exactly one who eats meat can have a pure heart, just as one who does not eat can have an impure heart. In the Buddhist teachings, the important thing is the quality of your heart, not the contents of your diet. Boom. Many Buddhists take great care never to eat meat, but they are not concerned about being selfish, dishonest, cruel, or jealous. They change their diet, which is easy to do. They change their diet, which is easy to do, while neglecting to change their hearts, which is a difficult thing to do. So whether you are a
Mm.
vegetarian or not, remember that the purification of the mind is the most important thing in Buddhism. I'd say that's a Hosu drop.
Mic drop. Hustle
Hosu,
drop.
Hosu drop, Hosu drop. Yeah, definitely. Boom.
Yeah, there is a sutta in the Pali Canon where the Buddha does in fact directly say this. I don't say that a person who eats meat, eating meat does not defile the person. Rather, the kleshas, anger, hatred, greed, etc. These are the things that defile a person. Now, for those in a Western context, we've all heard that somewhere before. Obviously, in the Gospels,
Yeah.
Jesus says almost those exact same words. Not what goes into a person defiles them, but what comes out of the person, by which he means
Yep.
what's in their heart, right?
Yeah.
What their
Exactly.
thoughts, their
Yeah. Yeah.
so everyone
Exactly.
from a Christian or a Western background is gonna hear a little ding.
Ding dong. Yeah,
Heard that
exactly.
before.
Exactly. And I suppose from our perspective, from a Buddhist perspective, we can see that, and that's more evidence of upaya, the upaya of the Buddhas working through other religions,
Yeah,
in that sense. And it's just the truth. There are things that, just come through as truth
yeah,
in whatever avenues because it's just true in the Buddhist sense. It's just in the
right.
the anyway, yeah.
Yep.
So yeah,
The
very
pile
good,
of grain.
very excellent. It's what? Sorry.
The pile of grain. I love that sutra. I know the grain pile. It's all grain. It's all dharma. It's all good.
So yeah, so I
So
think
yeah, this
that's
is.
very good.
I
Yeah.
think
So
it's
anything else you
good.
wanted to say about these last kind of things of the questions and more, yeah, answers and
Right.
questions more.
Well, I think for us as Shin Buddhists, of course, this is from the Theravada point of view, and yes, it's true. In Buddhism, the goal, the most important thing, is to purify the mind, right? To purify the mind from the kleshas, which are expressed here as selfishness, dishonesty, cruelty, jealousy, bonno in Japanese, anger, greed, desire. The question is can we do that
Yeah.
for us who
Yeah.
are Shin Buddhists?
It's,
And Shinron found that in the end he couldn't.
yeah.
And so
Even after 20 years of like
yeah.
proper, devout, studied in the probably, the most comprehensive school of Buddhism that exists, Tendai, he could not
Mm,
do it. And yeah, so
yeah. So there's a point of reflection there for those of us who come to Shin Buddhism. Uh, this is kind of where I think where this article, and it is an excellent article, but where it ends, I think, is kind of where Shin Buddhism begins. For people who
yeah,
have, I'm
yeah,
saying for not necessarily for a Theravadan bhikkhu, but for people who have come to that point in their spiritual journey,
yeah, yeah,
um, and have found that their kleshas are, not so much little things that can be easily broken, but
yeah,
as the word suggests, mighty chains, um, as it were. So, so just from a Shin Buddhist point of
point
view,
of
kind
view.
of adding to not, I'm not trying to take away, I'm just adding it on as sort
Yeah,
of a epilogue.
exactly, exactly. Um, you could
Now,
probably do this same kind of exercise, if you like, with these questions and answers for just about every aspect of our lives as bamboo and come to the similar
Oh,
come to a similar kind of um, realization or you know
yeah,
um, point.
yeah.
So it's just
It's a good conversation. Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's. I think especially for people. I think actually for a lot of people who are from a Buddhist culture, they might kind of wonder like what is this question about? Because um, you know it's not necessarily a given that Buddhists are vegetarian and vice versa.
Mm,
But
mm,
for Westerners, there is this image addressed here that Buddhists are vegetarian or even vegan
hmm
or something like that. And so I think it's important to address that question from, sort of a holistic viewpoint, because we as people coming to the Dharma, we need that broader perspective. We're not just
hmm
coming from
hmm
one particular
hmm
sectarian point of view. We're
hmm
coming to the Dharma
Yep.
from a broader
Yep.
perspective. And so we need to have the historical, the doctrinal, the entire sort of picture, I think. And then with that, we can make our own decisions about whether we decide to be vegetarian or to eat meat, or maybe we decide to be vegetarian for 1 month in the year, or who knows how that could, who knows what. We're all individuals. We all have these, different abilities, essentially, is what it
Okay.
is. And so, but I think, yeah, it's good to have the full picture. And then
Yeah.
just do remember that historically, um, not everyone had the luxury, of being vegetarian, and maybe reflect on the fact that we do have that luxury, or some of us, or however many of us, maybe reflect on what uh, costs there are to that as well. And I think there's a lot of ethical issues with industrial great scale farming, and I think you kind of hinted and implied maybe we eat too much meat, and maybe there is a middle way, a better, more
hmm
sustainable path.
hmm
I
Exactly.
think this is
Exactly.
all this is all
Because it's
very good questions, and
yeah, definitely, definitely. I think just looking at it is is a part of deep reflection that we should be doing in as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists uh, about all the teachings and all these things. How does this fit into our how should we how does this fit what's the Jodo Shinshu Buddhist perspective? What's the how does this fit into my life as a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist or as a Bambu and Mappo, and how do and how should I be behave how should I try my best to behave? How should I according to the Buddhist teachings, according, using the precepts as guidelines, using the principles of humanity, justice, etc., from those sort of Confucian side of of things, as guidelines, how, as Renyo and Shinran pointed us toward, but how, how do I live? How, and also reflecting on the impossibility of doing that, reflecting on the impossibility of really getting it right, even though we should still
yeah.
try to. We have to, we have to be able to reflect on our bamboo-ness, on our karmic limitations, on our spiritual idiocy and incapacity, and that we cannot act as we wish. Gives that opportunity to look at all those things, which I think is a huge part of that reflection. I think is a huge part of Jodo Shinshu life, the Jodo
Mhm.
Shinshu lifestyle. It should be, um, according to the teachings. and according to Shinran's example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He led by
And
example. He didn't just lead, he led by example,
right.
as all great, spiritual leaders do or should.
Yeah, exactly.
True,
Or they wouldn't
true,
have
true
followers.
great spiritual leaders.
Um, although even saying that, I'm now like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Uh, they unfortunately
Saying what?
there
Saying
are.
what?
I said if they didn't, they wouldn't have followers. But then I was thinking, uh-oh,
No,
there are some
that's not.
pretty. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
That's not the
Scratch
case.
that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, that's another reality of living in samsara during Mappo, is actually spiritual leaders who are not truly true true spiritual figures are can easily
Yeah.
attain followers, unfortunately. But anyway,
Yep. Yeah. But that's another
that's a whole
conversation.
nother.
I think. I think too.
Yeah.
Now tying this, I
Yeah.
sent with the I sent about the words before and
Yes,
after the
before
meal.
we go to that, because I think that's a good way to end this, but I just wanted
Yeah.
to discuss a little bit, which is helped by our previous conversation, and because I was wrestling a lot with things with less, but this one I've been able to kind of just, having done that now, I just feel like I've really listened, and you know what I mean? This dialogue has kind of loosened up some of the things, but here's kind of how the calculations go, I guess, if you like, the thought pattern, the habituated kind of thought pattern goes with this. Okay, I'm a Buddhist, so I should be trying, there's that. I should, according to kind of everything in Buddhism, I should probably try to be a vegetarian, try my best to be a vegetarian, reduce and reduce harm in every other way in my life that I can, as best I can. But then there's this like, there's part of me that's like, well, I should just be vegetarian. To just to there's that kind of black and white, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
of, well, to be just if so I'm not wrestling with it, or I'm just clear on it, even though I know I'm still causing harm by having a plant-based lifestyle or whatever you want to say. At least this would be the maximum I could do to be fully vegetarian. Do you see what I mean? To be a good Buddhist, quote unquote, good Buddhist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see that it's all revealed, through this such a good thing, this whole exercise of questions about that. But
Do you want to cut the sharing so that it's just us talking
oh yeah,
now,
yeah, yeah.
or
Sorry, yeah, good plan. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah, so there's that part, and that's been going on for years and years and years, prior to me even being in Pure Land Buddhism or Jeta Shinshu. Um,
Mhm.
and and then part of the other part of me that is Amida's light has shown on is going, well, you're a bamboo. You're a spiritual idiot. You've continuously for now a few decades, continuously, at least in this provisional lifetime, you've seen multiple layers and further layers of your incapacity to try to, to live, do you know what I mean? According to
Yeah.
Buddhist precepts and the truth of reality, and and you've seen multiple layers of your spiritual evil and karmic evil, and do you know what I mean? And so how can you expect, you know, in this one area of life, you kind of see it in everything in a lot of other aspects. But I have there's a similar thing that certain other aspects of my life that I have there's a similar thing, you know, I should just not do it. And then at least then that's the maximum I can do. Do you see what I mean?
Mm.
But then once when that light of Amina is shining and you see not only I see my own karmic situation and reality to whatever degree I can see that as a bamboo and my own karma causes, and then as well, the Midas light shine for me on the rest of the world in the Saha world in Mapo. Like, how can you? You can't take a line like that. You can't. All you can do is do your best to.
Yeah.
You can't act as you wish. I can't. I just simply cannot. So I can do the best I can with it to within my karma causes and conditions as a bamboo to live by the
Yeah.
principles of humanity, etc. Anyway, but that's the thing that goes back and forth. I just want to be, do you know what I mean? I just want to be, I want a clear cut. That's it.
Hmm.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I think,
And
you know, um, and maybe that's a good like sort of way in to start discussing the words that we say before and after
yes,
meals.
yes, good. Yeah,
Because there is none of that calculation in those words,
yeah,
you know. Now, I'm not saying that you are, you know, that we shouldn't be responsible. I'm not saying we should not be mindful of what we're consuming, especially in this hyper consumerist
yep,
culture. I'm
exactly,
not saying any of that. That's a separate, and we do need to think about that stuff. But when we are before the meal and we are given this, we're sitting down at the table, these causes and conditions of life have come together in literally have come together in the meal that is before us. And it has been prepared, hopefully with love by people who care about us. We're on the receiving end of all of that. And itadakimasu, when we say itadakimasu, it literally means I gratefully accept, I gratefully receive. There's no ego whatsoever. There's no calculation. I receive this. It's more of
mm,
really an
mm,
affirmation. It's an acknowledgement that I am receiving life. And that is what is sustaining me and enabling me to hear the Dharma in this body, in this lifetime. All of these causes and conditions that have nurtured me are being given to me free without and so I am gratefully, humbly receiving that. And that's why we put our hands
yeah,
together and say itadakimasu. And then the words at the end, gochiso samadeshita, same meaning. It just means that I am grateful for this meal that I have now received. And, there is sort of I think in the spirit of Buddhism, we say, you know, not to let that go to waste, but to, this energy, this of life that I have received is now something I put into walking the path, hearing the Dharma, saying the Nimbutsu, right?
exactly.
And so
Sorry, I just got a
and so
call. Sorry, that was just
oh, no worries.
I just did. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so go ahead, please.
So, but what I want to emphasize is how the ego and all the calculations that the ego gives rise to, right, are not present in that moment where we simply gratefully receive what is being given to us. And so I think that, that is kind of the traditional way that Jodo Shinshu Buddhists have lived, Um, whether it's fish, whether it's a delicious salad, whether it's you know, a rabbit that your uncle caught in the back hills of um, the
Exactly.
the what you are receiving in that meal, you receive with gratitude. And it's
Yeah.
really more about, in that sense, it really is more about the mindset and the awareness of who I am in relation to life itself and in relation to all the people, all the causes and conditions that are
Mm, mm.
sustaining. And so, um, I don't know if that directly answers is going to resolve your,
Well, I
but
think
I
it's
think
water on stone. I think
maybe,
it's just, it's going to take Amida is going to keep working it.
yeah.
Gonna keep it's I can see it's already shifting. It's already shifting. So, but yeah. Anyway,
What I would suggest would be, and the reason I sent you that now
yeah,
in the Japanese version, there are like maybe added words and so on to kind of explain, but really you don't need that. I think what you could do is maybe say it in Japanese,
mm,
um,
okay,
and then just maybe add something in English, like you could say, you know, I gratefully receive this meal, which um, is being given to me through so many causes and
different causes and
conditions.
conditions. Yeah.
Itadakimasu.
Is there a place that a link somewhere where that's actually written that I could put in the description of this a link I could put? Do you know what I mean? That
Yeah, I was only able to
yeah,
find the Japanese version. I'll look a
okay,
little bit more. Generally in English, there is a longer sort of version in Japanese, but
yeah,
really the core of it is just the simple itadakimasu before the meal and then gochiso sama deshita after. That's really kind of, I think, in English speaking places what is transmitted, so to speak.
yeah,
So um, I'll look a little bit more if there's an English
okay,
version or
okay,
something like that. But
all right,
yeah,
perfect.
sure.
Should
But I
we
think in terms of, yeah, go ahead.
should we kind of end this with maybe reading the bit about you know Shonin simply took his place among the ordinary lay monks and
Oh yeah, sure.
yeah, should we read that as well as maybe the bit from Renyo about hunters and do you know what I mean, or should I just put those links in the description?
You know, let's I think the Kudensho one is good, and maybe we should get to it at some point, but it is
Yeah,
a little long.
it's long.
Maybe
Okay,
we should just read Rinyo's letter on hunting and fishing because it is quite short.
okay, yeah,
What do you think?
yeah, let's just
I
do that.
have it open there because I
Okay, yeah,
figured it would.
cool, then yeah, let me get out of here then. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please share it, and then
Oh,
we'll.
okay. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So this is from. Should I read it? Would you like to read it?
Yeah, please.
I
Where
guess
is it? Hunting and
you read the question and
yeah,
answer, so I
you
would.
read. Yeah, read this to take us out. Yeah.
So the third letter in I forget which fascicle. I think it's the first volume of GOBUNSHO, which is the letters of RENNYO Shonin. On hunting and fishing. First, realizing the settled mind in our tradition does not mean that we put a stop to our mind's evil or to the rising of delusions and attachments. Simply carry on with your trade or position of service, hunt and fish. For when we realize deeply that Amida Tathagata's primal vow promises to save such worthless beings as ourselves, who are confused morning and evening by evil karma, when we single-heartedly, without any double-mindedness, rely on the compassionate vow of the one Buddha Amida, and when sincere faith is awakened in us by the realization that Amida saves us, then without fail, we partake of the Tathagata's saving work. Beyond this, when there is a question as to with what understanding should we say the Nimbutsu, the answer is that we are to say the Nimbutsu as long as we live, realizing that it is in gratitude, in return for the gracious benevolence that saves us by giving us the power of entrusting, through which our birth is assured. Those who do this are to be called practitioners of faith, in whom the settled mind of our tradition is established.
Namo.
Respectfully, May 3rd. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo
Namo
Amida.
Butsu. Namo Butsu.
That pretty much says it all, I think.
Mm. Yeah.
if we have the ears to hear.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
Notice he doesn't
that's
say.
a good summary.
Yeah.
Of
I've
the
read a
of the
comment here.
of the Jodo Shinshu Buddhist perspective on what we've been discussing today.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read a comment by someone on this letter, in the person said we shouldn't eat meat, but um if we can't abstain from meat, then the Buddha still saves us, kind of
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
interpretation. But
Yeah.
notice that's not actually what he says here.
Mm.
If he had
Yeah.
to say that, he could have. Um, but he says simply carry on with your trade or position of service, hunt and fish. He's not guilt tripping
No.
these people,
No.
right?
Not at all. No.
There's no guilt tripping here.
If you must,
Yeah. Well, if you have to eat meat, then the Buddha will understand and he'll still save you. That's a different that's not this letter. That's a different text, okay? That's not what's being said here. Just wanted to clarify that.
yeah. No. No. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Well, excellent discussion. Thank you so much. And like I
Yeah,
say,
this was a
again,
good
in
one.
the clearing of the channels, this is definitely these last week and this week, the discussions have been, I definitely can feel a of the shifting of the calculations, the debris and rocks and stones and pebbles of the calculations in the stream being shifted along
The stirring up, the flushing
of
away.
the sediment, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So thank you. Thank you very much. Shall we do some Nimbutsu to take us out?
Uh, yes, let's Gasho. Namo Amida
Amida
Butsu.
Butsu.
Namo
Namo
Amida
Amida
Butsu.
Butsu.
Namo
Namo
Amida
Amida
Butsu.
Butsu. Namanda Butsu.
Namanda.
Namanda Butsu. Namanda.
Namanda. Namanda.
Namanda Butsu. Namanda.
All right.
Thank you. All
Well,
right.
yes,
Take
you as
care
well.
until next time. We'll
All right.
communicate about when that will be on Messenger.
Yes, for
And
sure.
all right. Take care. All the
Okay.
best.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.